So, when I was in school, I was really into something super cool, super awesome, and super interesting. Well, at least I thought so. I remember this game that I had. It was called Nintendo 64. And I thought it was the dopest, most amazing game that ever existed. I got it for Christmas, and I was talking about it to all of my friends until I realized nobody else was really into it. See, because you probably don't know the Nintendo 64. This was long before Nintendo Switch and all the things that you guys know about, but it was a gaming console and it was the best. But then I realized that everybody else didn't really like Nintendo 64 because they had Sega Genesis, which was the competitor, and apparently it was the cooler one to have. Now at the time, it mattered so much to me. It was personal for me. And because it was personal for me, I thought it was personal for everybody. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you thought everyone still cared about hoverboards or fidget spinners or rainbow looms as much as you do. But your dreams were crushed when you realized that most people had moved on from those trends years ago. Now, whatever it is, we all have stuff that matters to us, things that are personal to us. And a lot of times we show what matters to us to the people around us. Here's what I mean. I'm really into this camp called Big Stuff Camps. I've worked there. As a matter of fact, I'm so into it, I'm wearing a shirt that tells everyone how much I love it. Pretty cool, right? Or what about, well, let me just show you, hold on. So, I love bacon, right? Like, this is a great one. And sometimes you have a little bit of a snacksident because you eat all the bacon. That's me. I don't know about you. Maybe you've had that problem before. Also, I love tacos. Is anybody with me on that? I'm sure you are. What else do we have in here? Can't say that I'm all the way into the periodic table, but I might wear this shirt periodically. See what I did there? Oh, now this one is really cool. If you've ever been to the state of Texas, there's a place called Buc-ee's, right? Buc-ee's is like this ridiculous, large, like convenience store on the side of the interstate. You drive down and it seems like it's for miles that this thing lands. Like it's like 40 gas pumps and you go inside and they've got every single food that you can think of. It's amazing. You should try it sometime. And then, of course, there's pie, because who doesn't love pie? And, as I mentioned, Nintendo 64, go even further back from that. I used to love playing Atari. Enduro is a racing game. I had so much fun playing that game. All these shirts tell people how much I love these things. I mean, it means so much to me. I just want to announce to everyone how much I love them. Now, I bet right now, if you looked around at each other, you'd find a couple of things that matter to your friends too. Now, these are things that we care about as individuals. Things like video games, or fashion, or sports, or music, animals, maybe photography, or fishing, or TikTok, or dance, or dancing on TikTok. And we all also have personal values that matter to us. Things like being kind, or getting good grades, having a ton of friends, making people laugh, or even following Jesus and going to church. And because we're so interested in that thing, or believe so strongly that what we value is important, it's easy to think it matters to other people as well. We feel that if it's important for us, it means it's important for others. If we care about something, that means that other people probably care about it too, right? Or maybe, even if we know other people don't really care about the things we care about, we still think we know what they care about. Someone at school, your new neighbor, the girl on your team, the boy in your group. You don't really know them, but you think you do. You think you have them all figured out, even though you really haven't taken the time to get to know them personally. Listen, here's the truth. We all do this. I mean, think about it. I bet you can all picture someone in your life right now that you think you have figured out. You think you know who they are and what they're into and what they're like. You think you understand what matters to them and what they care about. And you've probably thought those things based only on assumptions or observations from a distance. You don't really know what matters to them, but you think you do. And that's because, like we said, it can be easy to think we have people figured out. It can be really easy to feel like we know people personally, even when we don't. And while that may not seem like that big of a deal, I think it actually has the potential to impact both others and ourselves in some not so great ways. Now, for starters, we tend to only hang out with people who we think are like us. People who care about what we care about. And that means we leave out or avoid or exclude people who we think are not like us. Not only do we miss out on people who might bring great things into our lives, but sometimes we also hurt them, whether we mean to or not. Or these assumptions we make about ourselves and others makes us feel like maybe we're the ones who don't fit in. We feel stuck and lonely and misunderstood. We feel like nobody understands what really matters to us. Like nobody really knows us on a personal level. And that's why I love what Jesus did in the story of Zacchaeus. Jesus didn't make assumptions. Jesus made it personal by truly understanding what mattered to Zacchaeus. Now, before we get too far into Zacchaeus' story, let me give you some background on what was happening at the time. Jesus was becoming extremely popular. So more and more people were starting to follow him. He had fulfilled prophecies, he'd worked miracles, and some of his sermons pretty much went viral. It's safe to say that people thought Jesus was a pretty big deal. In this story we're about to read, Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem and had just entered a city called Jericho. Now, the crowd in Jericho was so excited to see Jesus that they welcomed him with palm branches and shouts of, "Hosanna!" which is basically a term used to celebrate and express joy back then. It'd be like us going like, whoop, whoop. Like, can you imagine that? Jesus walks in and you're like, whoop, whoop, what's up, Jesus, right? Like, it was here that Jesus had his last recorded personal encounter before he died on the cross. And that encounter was with Zacchaeus. Now, Zacchaeus wasn't someone you'd expect Jesus to personally connect with. In fact, I'd say it was probably the opposite. See, Zacchaeus didn't have the best reputation. He was a chief tax collector, which meant that he had to collect taxes, just take money from the citizens on behalf of Rome. Now, the problem was that tax collectors at this time were known to be dishonest and untrustworthy. Most people thought they were greedy thieves, so that's how most people viewed Zacchaeus. Now, if anyone could have made the argument, "I don't really have time for you," it probably would have been Jesus in this moment. But instead, a different story took place. It says this: he wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. Now, based on how the crowd viewed Zacchaeus, I bet what Jesus did surprised everyone. But Jesus saw something about Zacchaeus that the crowd didn't. The crowd saw someone who greedily took more money than he should have. The crowd saw someone who kept all the nice things for himself. The crowd had every reason to assume that what mattered to Zacchaeus was money and wealth. But Jesus saw a grown man who had run ahead of the crowd to climb a tree. Jesus saw someone who was so interested in meeting the rumored Savior that he didn't care what his reputation was or what assumptions people made about him. Jesus saw a man desperately interested in finding hope. Zacchaeus wanted hope so desperately, he climbed a tree just to get a glimpse of a guy he heard might be able to give it to him. The people thought they knew all about Zacchaeus. To them, he was nothing more than a greedy, sinful traitor. The exact opposite of the kind of person Jesus should have noticed, let alone asked to hang out with. Jesus knew what Zacchaeus did for a job and what people thought about him. But Jesus didn't let assumptions tell him who Zacchaeus was personally or what really mattered to him. Jesus made his interaction with Zacchaeus personal because Jesus knew what mattered to him. And the truth is this: Jesus does the same for us. See, it's personal because Jesus knows what matters to you. Jesus sees more than what everybody else sees. Jesus sees into the very heart of all of us. He looks past all the outward things like reputations and assumptions. So the next time you wonder if anybody cares about what you care about, the next time you feel alone or misunderstood or just out there on your own, think about Jesus. Think about how he knows you in a personal way. Someone who knows your world and knows what matters to you. Who cares about the real you, not the one that everyone thinks they know. Remember, it's personal because Jesus knows what matters to you. So, what can we take from this? How can we learn from Jesus' example? I think there are basically two things we can do to make it personal, one for ourselves and one for others. First, we can make it personal for ourselves by talking to Jesus about what matters to us. Jesus cares about every single thing you care about. So tell Jesus what matters to you. Pray about it. Write it down. Jesus wants us to talk to him about anything and everything, just like we would with our best friend. And the more we talk to him about the things that matter to us, the more connection we'll feel with him, the more personal he'll become. Now, maybe you're thinking, I don't really know what matters to me yet. I have some interests and some things I care about, but are they things that really matter to me? If that's you, I totally get that. Honestly, that's normal. We're all constantly learning and figure out what matters to us. And one of the best ways you can keep discovering that is by talking to Jesus about it. And second, we can make it personal with others. Now, in his encounter with Zacchaeus, Jesus demonstrated what he wants you and I to do for the people in our lives as well. To look past our assumptions and what we think we know about each other and what matters to us. To make it personal. To take the time to get to know other people and discover what matters to them. So how do we do this? We just need to be intentional about getting to know someone. We need to look beyond what we think matters to them and even beyond what matters to us. And instead, we can actually get to know more about who they are by taking an interest in their interests. Start with one person who you think you already know things about, or someone you may have never taken the time to get to know personally. Talk to them. Ask them about what matters to them, and then pay attention to what they say. Take an interest in other people, and you just might be surprised to find that you have more in common than you thought. You may find that you've made a personal connection where there wasn't one before. Remember, it's personal because Jesus knows what matters to you. And because of that, he wants you to make it personal by discovering more about what matters to yourself and someone else. Your group is a great place to do just that. It's a perfect place where you can learn about what matters to others and show them you truly care about who they are as a person. It's a place to share what matters to you most and to let them get to know you in return. So now as you go to your groups, here's a question I want you to think about. What's one thing that matters to me?